Hello, superstars. Welcome to the I Am Learning Hub, where math is fun, simple, and something you can actually enjoy. So today we're going to be diving into something that you use all the time without even knowing it, and it's called direct proportion. Now, what is direct proportion, you might ask? Now, two values are said to be in direct proportion when as one goes up, the other also increases at the same rate. So think of it this way. The longer you leave the tap open, the more water you have. The more hours you study, the better results you get. The more items you buy, the more expensive it is. Do you see that? As the first value increases, the second one increases at the same rate. Those two values are said to be directly proportional. So now we're going to be looking at a few direct proportion questions. Now let's look at this question. If 3 pencils cost 150 naira, how much will 7 pencils cost? Now this is a direct proportion question because as the number of pencils increase, the amount will also increase. So the two values would go up at the same rate. So let's solve this question. There's generally a formula that can be used to solve direct proportion questions, and that is x1 over y1 is equal to x2 over y2. x1 being the first value in the first question, x2 being the second value in the first part of the question, y1 being the first value in the second part of the question, and y2 being the cost that we're looking for. So 3 pencils over 7 pencils will be equal to 150 naira over x. We don't know how much it costs, and so that's why we're representing it by x. Now let's look at this. 3 over 7 is equal to 150 over x. Now, when you have a fraction that is equal to another fraction and one value is missing, the fastest way to solve that is to cross multiply. Cross multiply means I would say 3 times x is going to be equal to 7 times 150. Now let's do this. 3 times x is 3x over 7 times 150, 1050. Now you have that 3x is equal to 1050. Now we want to be able to get just x on one side so that we can find out what the value of x is. Remember, x is the cost of 7 pencils that we're looking for. Now to do that, I must divide both sides by 3. Now I'm dividing by 3 because x has 3 right in front of it, and I want to be able to get just x on one side. So I divide both sides by 3. The rule at this point is that whatever you do to one side, you must do to the second side. So that's why we're dividing this by 3, and we're also dividing this by 3. Now 3 will cross out 3. I would have just x on one side. So mission has been accomplished. Now let's divide 10,050 by 3. 3 will go in 10, 3 times, I have 1 left. 3 will go in 15, 5 times, and 3 will go in that 0. So x is 350. So it's safe to say that the cost of 7 pencils is 350 naira. Now let's look at another direct proportion question. Now let's look at this question. A car travels 120 kilometers in 3 hours. How far will it travel in 5 hours at the same speed? Now let's look at this. We're going to say 120 kilometers over, we don't know what the second one is, we're looking for that, is equal to 3 hours over 5. Now, when you have a fraction that is equal to another fraction and there is an unknown value, remember to always use your cross multiplication. So by the time you cross multiply, you have that 120 times 5 is equal to 3 times x. 120 times 5 is 600, is equal to 3x. Now remember, I want to find out what the value of x is. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. When I do that, this is 200. This 3 will cross out this 3. So my x is going to be equal to 200. That means that in 5 hours, my car is going to have traveled 200 kilometers. Now, so we've looked at this question and we've solved it using x1 over y1 is equal to x2 over y2. But I want to show you another method of solving direct proportion questions. Now, look at this. If more, less divides. If less, more divides. I will explain. Now, a car travels 120 kilometers in 3 hours. How far will it travel in 5 hours? Remember, this is a direct proportion question. So as one value increases, the other value also increases at the same rate. What does that mean? It means that the number of kilometers that will be covered in 5 hours would be more than the number of kilometers that will be covered in 3 hours. So that is more. So it is more. Our answer that we're looking for is more than what we know, which is 120 kilometers. And if more, less divides. So out of 5 and 3, which is less? Less is 3. So 3 is going to divide 5. And then you multiply that by 120. Now let's go. You reduce and then multiply. 3 go here 1 time, 3 go in this 40 times. 40 times 5 is 200 kilometers. So whether you use the first method or you use this method, you will arrive at 200 kilometers. Now let's look at another question using the 2 methods. 5 books weigh 2.5 kg. What is the weight of 12 books of the same type? That means that the books are exactly the same type. What will the weight of 12 books be? So x1 over y1 is equal to x2 over y2. Now, what are the 2 values that we know? We know that we have 5 books and we have 12 books. So 5 over 12 is equal to, what is the weight of 5? 2.5. What is the weight of 12? We don't know. We leave it as x. Now, at this point, we cross multiply. So that means that 5 times x is equal to 12 times 2.5. Now, when we do this multiplication, you have that 5x is equal to 30. You divide both sides by 5. Remember, you want to be able to get x alone on one side. So by the time I do that, this crosses out that 5 will go in 36 times. My x is equal to 6. So that means my 12 books are going to weigh 6 kg. All right, now let's look at the second way of solving this question. If more, less divides. If less, more divides. Now, 5 books will weigh 2.5 kg. That means that 12 books will definitely weigh a lot more than 2.5 kg. So that means we are looking for a value that is more than 2.5 kg. And if more, less divides. And because less is going to divide, we're going to have 12 over 5, less dividing, times 2.5 over 1. Now, by the time you do this, you would have 12 times 2.5 is 30 over 5, which is equal to 6 kg. So whether you go with this method or this method, your answer is going to be 6 kg for 12 books. Now let's look at one last question on that direct proportion. If a machine produces 60 bottles in 10 minutes, how many bottles can it produce in 4 minutes? Now, x1 over y1 is equal to x2 over y2. What 2 values do we know? We know 10 minutes and we know 4 minutes. So 10 over 4 is equal to 60 bottles over, we don't know how many bottles are produced in 4 minutes. Now at this point, we have a fraction equal to another fraction, so we what? We cross multiply. So that means that 10 times x is equal to 60 times 4. So 10x is equal to 240. Now, I just want to have x alone on one side. So that means I have to divide both sides by 10. Doing that, I would have that x is equal to 24. So that means that in 4 minutes, the machine would have produced 24 bottles. Now let's try the second method. If more, less divides. If less, more divides. Now let's look at the value that we're looking for. Is it more or is it less? Now, in 10 minutes, the machine will produce 60 bottles. So in 4 minutes, do you think it would produce more bottles or less bottles? Definitely less bottles. So if less, more divides. So what is more? More is 10. So we're going to be dividing 4 by 10. More divides times the value that we know, 60 over 1. Now we reduce and then multiply. 4 times 6 is 24. So I will arrive at 24 bottles.
I am learning with I Am Learning Hub.